For years, Harry held onto the hope. The quiet, stubborn, desperate hope that one phone call, one private meeting, one carefully arranged moment of reconciliation would be enough to repair what was broken. He believed the door was still open. He believed the family that raised him was still waiting on the other side of it. He believed that time, distance, and enough diplomatic maneuvering could eventually undo the damage of everything that came before. And the palace, with the particular unhurried patience of an institution that has outlasted empires, survived abdications, and buried its scandals deeper than anyone will ever know, simply waited. Waited for Harry to finally understand what everyone inside those walls had quietly accepted long ago. That some things, once broken the way this was broken, do not get restored. They don't get negotiated back into existence. They don't soften with time or heal with gestures. They simply become history. And this week, that reality arrived for Harry with a force that no carefully worded statement, no sympathetic media ally, and no Invictus press cycle could cushion. King Charles has reportedly made his position clear. The reconciliation is not happening. Not on Harry's terms. Not on Meghan's terms. And according to sources speaking to multiple royal journalists, with consistent and reliable track records, not at all. The man who once held out hope longer than perhaps anyone else inside the royal family has reportedly reached the end of his patience. And William, the future king who has watched every chapter of this story unfold from the closest possible distance, passed the end of his patience a very long time ago. What is happening right now inside the British monarchy is not a family disagreement. It is a permanent institutional reckoning. And Harry, sources suggest, is only just beginning to truly understand what that means. To understand why this moment cuts so deep, you have to understand the architecture of the story Harry has been telling himself and the media for months. The reconciliation narrative has been cycling through royal coverage with remarkable persistence. Quiet diplomatic efforts, open channels, suggestions of a thaw, carefully placed hints that the door had not been fully shut. Senior aides reportedly involved in behind-the-scenes conversations. Sources suggesting that a July visit to Britain could become something larger, something meaningful, something that might begin to rebuild what years of public warfare had dismantled. But here is what people with genuine access to this world have been saying consistently, clearly, and without ambiguity. Harry puts his wishes out in the media and hopes they come true. That is the entire architecture of the reconciliation story. Not a palace initiative. Not a genuine bilateral negotiation between two parties moving toward each other. A wish dressed up as a dispatch. And that wish comes with conditions attached, which means it was never really a wish at all. It was a demand written in softer language. Because Harry's reported willingness to re-engage, to attend events, to return to Britain and reconnect with the family arrives packaged with requirements. Meghan's presence. Meghan's terms. Meghan's conditions on what any engagement looks like, who gets access, and what the arrangement means for the Sussex brand going forward. Which means the palace is not being offered a reconciliation. It is being offered a negotiation. And according to sources whose credibility on this subject has been tested and proven repeatedly, the palace's response to that negotiation can be summarized in a single brutal sentence. No one ever wants to see Meghan again. Those are not words chosen for dramatic effect. That is a direct characterization from inside the palace orbit, reported by journalists who have spent years building the kind of sourcing that doesn't get things like this wrong. And it is the foundation on which Harry's entire reconciliation proposal is being constructed. You can see the structural problem immediately. You cannot build a bridge when the other side has quietly removed the landing. The trust question sits at the center of everything, and it is worth being honest about how complete that breakdown actually is. The palace does not distrust Harry conditionally, with reservations, with a list of concerns that could theoretically be addressed through the right conversation. The distrust is total. According to every credible source in this space, the situation has reached the point where a private conversation, an unwitnessed moment between Harry and any senior family member, is considered genuinely untenable. Not because anyone expects a scene or a confrontation, but because the concern is that any unwitnessed interaction will eventually end up in a book, a documentary, a carefully timed interview, or a leak to a friendly journalist positioned to cause maximum damage at maximum strategic advantage. Spare cannot be unwritten. The words in it cannot be taken back. The people it described, the grandmother, the grandfather, the brother, the sister-in-law quietly fighting cancer, they read it. Their staff read it. The institution read it. And the institution has a memory that is longer and colder than most people understand. William has reportedly reached a point where Harry's name is not a welcome presence in his immediate orbit. And this is not estrangement as a negotiating strategy. This is not William positioning himself for a future conversation. This is a man who watched his wife described the way she was described, his children's names used the way they were used, his most private family moments made public the way they were made public, and decided there is a limit to what loyalty and blood require. Sources describe his anger not as something that burns hot and visible, but as something that has moved beyond conventional emotion entirely. People close to William have reportedly said his brother's name cannot even be comfortably raised in his presence. That he has moved past anger into something colder and more final, the point where a person stops being a problem to solve and simply becomes someone who no longer exists in your world. Level 11, as one source put it, beyond anything with a name. And then there is Invictus. The games that were supposed to be Harry's legacy. The project that demonstrated his genuine commitment to service, to the military community that shaped him, to something real and meaningful that existed completely outside the Sussex content machine. And the veterans who participate are real. The rehabilitation they experience is documented and valuable and important. But the governance surrounding the institution that champions them is now facing questions that cannot be dismissed. Leadership departures, financial pressures, corporate sponsorship harder to secure than it once was, questions about oversight and organizational structure being asked by people who have examined the finances carefully and found things worth scrutinizing. Centibale gone. Africa Parks carrying allegations too serious to ignore. And now Invictus under a microscope at the worst possible moment, right before Harry needs the world to see him as a man of purpose and substance rather than a man of grievance and distance. The veterans who give everything to those games deserve better than to have the institution built around their sacrifice become a liability attached to a personal brand in crisis. And the contrast, the comparison that nobody in Harry's communications operation wants made but that makes itself every single time. William's charitable work is not facing these questions. Not because William is luckier or more beloved or more protected by the institution. Because William shows up. Consistently, quietly, without conditions, without a camera crew documenting the service as content, without the service itself becoming another chapter in an ongoing personal narrative about why he deserves more recognition than he receives. That is the difference. Not glamour. Not drama. Just the sustained, unglamorous, undramatic work of being present without making your presence the story. And Harry, sources suggest, is beginning to feel the weight of what that difference actually means. There are reports that he watched William recently, genuinely relaxed, genuinely rooted, genuinely part of a life that has continuity and belonging and the easy confidence that comes from not having burned the bridges you were born on, and felt something difficult and honest move through him. Not anger. Something closer to grief. The grief of understanding, perhaps for the first time with full clarity, what was actually given up. Not the institution in the abstract. Not the titles or the security or the formal position. The specific, irreplaceable, impossible to reconstruct reality of belonging to something larger than yourself that existed before you arrived and will continue long after you are gone. His children will not have that. Not because anyone formally removed it from them. Because the choices their father made it impossible for the institution to keep the door open, and the choices their mother made it impossible for the family to want to. Some doors, once closed from the inside, cannot be opened from the outside. That is not cruelty. That is simply the shape that enough choices make when they all accumulate in the same direction. Harry wanted freedom. He got it. Meghan wanted Hollywood. She is navigating it. And in Windsor, in Kensington, in the quiet places where the working royal family gathers without fanfare and simply gets on with the business of the crown, the world is moving forward. Not against Harry. Not in triumphant opposition. Just forward. The way it always does. The way it was always going to. Subscribe to Crown Rift Daily right now, because the next move in this story belongs to the palace. And when it comes, it will say everything without saying a single word.